Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, we've talked about the suitors in terms of teams for Kevin Durant, the war of words that's already playing out in the NBA media, but the real big question at the core of all of it might just be, who is the actual best player the Suns could get back for KD? We'll break it down. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Wednesday. Don't forget Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode, folks, brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your very first purchase. Who could the Suns get back for Kevin Durant? Of the suitors we know, of the suitors that might come eventually, and maybe even for Bradley Beal. Joining me to talk about it, as always, from the Wild West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling on this Wednesday, Ben Garcia?
Good. I was just about to say Wednesday. I forgot we always record a day the day before, so I was like, wait a second, what is going on? I'm good though,
Don't
man.
give it up. Don't give it up to the people, even though the episodes go live at like 6:30 p.m. and everybody knows what we do here already. But
I was like, wait a second, it's already the halfway point through the week. That's not good. But either way, stoked, man. This is a conversation that we've had in our back pocket for about a week now. We just kind of pushed it until it felt like the right time. And now it feels like the first installment of it is a good time to have it now.
Exactly. And this will be something that, of course, evolves as we actually hear some of the real nitty-gritty of the trades that may come to pass here for Durant as the offseason progresses. But the reason I think this conversation matters is because the Suns have made no bones about the fact that they are looking for a reset, right? Booker has said, I'm not going to be here for a full teardown. There's no sense in that. I'm at a point in my career where I want to help us get back to championship contention, not, babysit a bunch of kids. And Matt Ishbia, of course, does not seem anywhere close to pushing the panic button and blowing all of this whole team up. So player-heavy packages seem like where your mind has to go, not what's the best pick the Suns could get, which maybe then you go to the Suns' own picks from Houston being this almighty thing, or San Antonio considering their huge plethora of those assets. But players is, I think, where we have to be focused. So Shams Charania, John Gambadoro, they seem to be pretty aligned on who the top four teams are. So let's start there, Ben, and we'll just take them one by one. I think that we seem to agree Houston is probably in the lead, even though we did talk about a report suggesting the opposite last week. But let's start there because it is a little eye of the beholder, I think, there. Are we in agreement that there's really not a pathway where Alperen Şengün or Amen Thompson are going to be in the conversation? Let's just to get that out of the way.
Without Devin Booker, there's no conversation to be had. They're not trading either of those guys for Kevin Durant.
Okay, so I think we would probably say Fred VanVleet, even if he is the most likely salary piece to come back. He's on the tail end of his prime, if not already past his prime, going toward the end of his career. He's not the best player they're going to get back, right?
No. That is all salary fillers. I don't be surprised if they'd give him up. Maybe you have to go a different angle to make that salary work. But yeah.
How about Dillon Brooks?
No.
You can't laugh. He's a solid player.
He's a solid player.
Be ridiculous about it. He's
a solid
good.
Player. But when you're talking about a haul for Kevin Durant, a trade for Kevin Durant, because sometimes that word haul is a little triggering to some people. You say the name Dillon Brooks and it just doesn't scratch the itch. I would not say that he's the best player. If he was a supplement to who I think you're alluding to, sure. But no, I wouldn't be
already 29, already making a lot of money, not an elite, top of the league defender, even at his best. So just not going to be what gets the job done. So the guy that I think you go to next from their young core, who we've talked about a lot, is Jabari Smith, right?
Yeah. That's in a Houston trade. I mean, that's the best guy you can get back. That's the guy who I think that in any scenario, I think that's the guy with the most upside. You can make an argument he's the best player out of all the teams, but given the fact he still is a little raw, and over the past couple of years, he's kind of solidified himself as what you have described him as, a blue chip role player. I don't know if the ceiling is really there for him to be a potential all-star player, but in a Rockets package, that's where I would go with, is a two-way guy that I think fit really well with Devin Booker. Here in that package, yes, that would be the best player, which I know is a little hard to hear for Rockets fans who thinks that they're going to send you back a ham sandwich and that's going to be it.
I think they might consider Jabari Smith somewhat of a ham sandwich, even considering all the assets that they have. But about to turn 22 next month, hasn't fully become the elite shooter you would have wanted to see him become out of Auburn, considering his shooting volume and versatility as a jump shot guy was one of the best things about him. He's settled in just a touch below average, frankly, but he's played the 3 through the 5 for Houston, already has a lot of high-level reps contributing to a good team. Those are all things you like to see. Better rebounder than a lot of those more raw, kind of lanky forwards, 7-8 a game already in limited minutes. So I like him. Minnesota. What do we think? This one doesn't have to be debated as much. I think people are underestimating. I don't necessarily want the trade to go here, but just with this question we're asking, how good Julius Randle actually is. How would you think about Randle? Because McDaniels is the obvious other answer. He's somebody we've talked about plenty as a piece that could come back for Durant if he goes to the Wolves. But Randle is this very interesting guy where I think he's perennially underrated because people just don't like some of his attitude, his play style, things like that. But he is a guy who's made multiple All-Star teams and just helped win a game 1 on the road. Like, he is not some sort of awful basketball player, and he's on this expiring contract where the Suns would have to pay him. How do you just think about Randle as one of the pieces in this conversation?
Is one of the pieces in the conversation. The reason why I don't want him coming back in any Suns trade is not because maybe he's not the best player. I think still, if we're going just as a whole, McDaniels, I do think, is just the better player than him if you go offense and defense. Although McDaniels was really good in game 1, I don't think he's been the same player this year as he was last year with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, roles kind of changed with that cat trade. But Julius Randle, he's a former All-NBA third teamer, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
He's made 1 second and 1 third team, 3 All-Star games.
Oh, okay.
People don't realize how legit that guy has been.
I would have not have guessed he had made a second and third All-NBA team. I thought it was very similar like the Goran Dragic 1 years ago where he made an All-NBA third team. So there's talent there, and offensively, he can get buckets. I don't know how much I trust him defensively, and the fit with this team, the attitude thing, if we're just going off of raw talent, I'd still take Jaden McDaniels just a little bit of a tick higher, and for his upside in terms of 27 years old compared to 30 as well.
It's the upside for me, right? Randle is 30 already, and so, he's been durable. I know last season he missed some time and had some injuries and whatever, but outside of the freak thing when he was a rookie, he's been a pretty durable dude, and he produces. He's a playmaker. He's big. He rebounds. A lot of the things you would like, but I just think right now, I think Randle's better than McDaniels, but I just don't think that's going to be the case forever. And you do have to weigh that a little bit. All right.
I also think just potentially, I think Randle's game might mature better and have a little bit of a longer runway as an NBA player than Julius Randle's game, who is kind of predicated a little bit on bully ball and not necessarily finesse shot making. So that's where I'd go with there.
For sure. It's going to be an interesting one I just think this conversation, like this way of phrasing it, almost it is like a little bit head in the sand on Randle, because the real reason you don't want him is having to pay him his next contract, not just how good he is right now. But that's kind of just the thought experiment we're doing here. Spurs, Devin Vassell. I don't think there's really any debate about this one because you're not getting Wembanyama, you're not getting Fox. He's probably the third best player on that team, and he also already makes a lot of money, which makes him an easier piece to send back. Neither of us are going to pretend like we've actively scouted a dude who's been on a rebuilding team. I will just say, dating back to when I did cover the draft more, and Vassell was a guy I looked at, and even, the past couple of years doing a national NBA podcast, I think he's a little overrated. I don't think he's quite the 3-and-D athletic guy that maybe you look at him and you think, oh, Florida State, Jonathan Isaac was there, etc. He's not really that. He's kind of a chucker. He likes to get to the mid-range. He doesn't take enough threes. I think there's something there, but I wouldn't put him near the top of this conversation personally, even with the upside factored in.
With all the teams that we talk about, I would agree with you on everything you said. Another reason why I worry about just doing any deal with the San Antonio Spurs is it's kind of like the Boston Celtics. Sometimes players flourish in those systems, go elsewhere, and they don't work out as well. Hence, the DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray was, awesome with the Spurs. And then, goes over to the Hawks, doesn't really work out. Pelicans, again, some injuries, doesn't really work out. There's just a system with those two teams that I don't really want to mess with that just get the most out of players that other teams don't necessarily do as well. So I don't hate Vassell, but he's not at the top of my list. It'd have to be more of a collection of players and picks if you're dealing with the Spurs.
Agreed. They seem to me to be, they're easier to do a trade with because they're so far from the tax and everything else, and they're pick heavier. So I think that's almost if the Suns get really close on a deal with the Spurs, that'll tell us their priorities have shifted. And I think Vassell in that conversation highlights why. That's kind of a tough sell to be the cream of the crop of what you're getting back for a player as good as Kevin Durant, despite the fact that you look at him, you think 3-and-D. But let's use the Knicks. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say really quickly, you would for sure take Devin Vassell over Keldon Johnson.
Yeah, I don't think Keldon Johnson's very good.
Okay. That's fair.
I think he's like a worse Bradley Beal to me. And I don't even mean like the baggage of Beal now. I actually think their games are very similar, and Keldon, he's a 6 man at best.
I would agree with you. I just wanted to throw it out there because
it's good because he's the other guy who's gotten paid and he makes some money, so he'd be somebody who could send back.
Exactly. So I'd agree with you, but you can.
Okay, so I was gonna say let's get to the Knicks to start off our next segment on some of the maybes and debates that I think we can have. But let's pick here of the players we've talked about: Randall, McDaniels, Jabari, Vassell. Who is the best of those 4 guys from the 3 teams we've talked about?
I think it's Jabari, man. I think the best player, I think out of all those guys is, and I think that's what I should stick with, is Jaden McDaniels. The best player is him. But I don't think there's a world where, I don't think he's infinitely better than Jabari Smith Jr. And then you go to the tiebreaker things, age, potential, what they, where they could go. Jabari kind of fits all that criteria a little bit better, to where Jaden McDaniels kind of feels like he's hit his ceiling of what he's going to be, a very consistent 3-and-D player. And I like that. But if we're just talking talent alone, and that's kind of what this conversation is, it's McDaniels for now, but TBD. And I think I'd rather Jabari in a trade. What about you?
I think all that's fair. How old is McDaniels? I always kind of
think he's 27
with him. He is 24, and he will turn 25 in September, right before the season starts.
Where did
he
I
was
get that he was 27?
Really young, one and done from Washington, but I always kind of forget exactly how old he is. Let's. My answer is Randall for right now. I think if we're just talking in a vacuum, Julius Randle is the single best player we have talked about. But I don't disagree with any of what you said, being more practical about the trade. Next, the Knicks, an interesting debate, and 3 mystery suitors. We'll get there in a moment. First, today's show is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Gametime, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Frankly, Gametime is being a little bit rude to us here in Phoenix, taunting us with how good NBA playoff basketball can really be. But if you happen to live in a place where this is happening and you want to catch a game, of course Gametime's the place to go. They give you, prices go down as tip-off gets closer. Last-minute deals can save you as much as 60%. But if you're looking for something to do here in the Valley, we get a concert in outdoors or something right before it really gets hot. D-backs game, Could say the same there. And maybe the AC's feeling a little better this year. Who knows? Save some money with Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price. Guaranteed. Alrighty here. We're back. Let's keep it rolling. Let's talk through the Knicks next, and then 3 mystery teams that I think we've sort of talked around with regard to Durant, but they might have the best players of this whole dang thing if we're really being honest with ourselves. But I got to admit, this is totally an overreaction based on his close to the season and what he did in Game 1, Ben. And Game 2. I'm willing to acknowledge that. But I am kind of coming around to a Knicks package because of how well OG Anunoby has played. And I know that he was 4 of 10 offensively in Game 2, but he is the only guy who seems to have any chance against Cade Cunningham, reminding you that he is another level of defender, even than some of the other guys we think of in the league. And he is, I think, a better, more consistent three-point shooter. He's not going to be sprinting off of screens or anything, but he is a reliably high volume, above average three-point shooter. 39, 37, 38, 38, 38 the past several years on 6+ attempts per game. And he can kind of get into a mid-range game or post up or finish if you need him to. He's not going to score 20 a night, but like he can do that. I know we talked about the money. That's a separate conversation. I think OG Anunoby is going to be really high on this list for me when it's all said and done. If we're just talking about the best individual players that the Suns could realistically get back for KD.
I mean, agreed. I think this is kind of where you and I have landed before, where we're not letting nostalgia get the most out of us when it comes to things like a Mikal Bridges reunion or whoever it is. Like OG Anunoby is high on that list. I like all the things he can do. If I'm not mistaken, he has had like some injury concerns in the past. I remember he tore his ACL coming out of Indiana. In 2023, 2024, he only played 27 games and then 23 games with New York.
He played 50 games total in 2023.
That was that. Yeah, that's right. Obviously, so traded
a lot. Yeah.
And before that, he's played 43 to 48 games 2 years in a row, and then 74 games this year. So,
and he had Tibbs minutes for a season and a half here too, which you got to factor in, right?
And then last year in the playoffs, the hammy issue wasn't able to really go, but that whole Knicks team imploded. So it wasn't just, it was Hartenstein, Brunson, it was him.
But
so
when he's on the court,
good player.
Very good.
He's on the short list of best 3-and-D players in the NBA. Like as of right, like when Suns fans talk about Mikal Bridges on the Phoenix Suns and why they get so hyped about him, that's what OG Anunoby is, what Mikal Bridges was for the Suns, where Mikal has kind of taken that step back with the New York Knicks. So, I mean, I'd agree with you. You'd get no argument with me who the best player is in that package. It would be Anunoby. And
OG is still only 27. He doesn't turn 28 until July, so he's in his prime.
I got OG. I think I got OG and Jaden McDaniels' ages mixed up before. But OG, and not to mention as well, I think you would be getting back other players as well. I don't know what their pick situation looks like because of the whole Mikal Bridges, Karl-Anthony Towns swaps, and Dante DiVincenzo, how all that has worked out, what you would realistically get from that. But you're talking about potentially getting a Kolick back or, however money, Deuce McBride as well. And then of course OG Anunoby is, and those are guys that when you're talking about the next great Suns team in terms of identity, what we think Ishbia wants, those are the guys you point to.
Okay, so I'll run through 2 that we've already talked about, and I think the best player you could get back is pretty clear. They're both centers. Dallas, Derek Lively. We can have a conversation about his end of the season if we'd like to. I tend to chalk that up to there's some pretty weird reporting around Dallas treating his ankle injury. If he can just kind of get right over the summer, I'm going to not worry about that a ton. And Miami, to me, it's very clearly Kel'el Ware. I think he's on the fringe when you kind of put him up there with like a Thompson, a Şengün, some players like that. Is he actually somebody who could be on the table in a trade like this? Frankly, Lively might not be either. Here's the wild card, though. A team we have not talked about that's kind of been on the outskirts of this conversation. If they win the title, I don't think you can really justify it, but they're staring down an insane tax bill and new ownership that could really, shuffle the cards. Boston. I don't think they can trade Porzingis. I think he is the ace in the hole that makes all of what they do on offense and, frankly, at times even defense really work. He's also cheap relative to some of these guys. I don't think you can split up Tatum or Brown. I think it honestly might come down to White or Holiday, and White's younger. So I think Holiday's probably the guy that they would be offering up in some kind of trade if they needed. Now, how does a KD trade make them cheaper? I have no clue. I don't really get how this makes any sense, but I just wanted to throw him out there.
Well, the Holiday one's interesting because he's 34 years old. He'd be 35 by the time he ends up a Phoenix Sun. And Devin Booker would never have to fear him going up against him anymore. But
true.
I mean, like, why would you do that? Like, why would you do that?
If you're talking sense to me, the only way you get cheaper is if you trade one of the best two guys. But that's just a bad trade, frankly.
I don't think if the Celtics lose in like the Eastern Conference Finals this year, or God forbid in the second round they play the Knicks and they lose, right? Or I don't know, the Pistons and lose. I do see a world where they explore. Let's see if we can let's get rid of Brown for KD. It's a very small percentage. Comment section, relax.
How much better than KD? How much better than Brown is Durant right now? It's a lot, but I'm just saying to just put it in.
How much better is Brown than Durant or Durant than Brown?
Durant than Brown. He is better. How much better? Because you'd have to really believe in it to give up the 8-year age difference.
Well, we're not talking about the 8-year age difference. You and I both agree there, but you and I also think
I'm flipping it from the Celtics' point of view right now. We're kind of getting out of the conversation we've been having. Okay. I'm just saying to explore that, because if Brown would ever actually be on this list, he's at the top of it. I don't even have to have the conversation.
Yeah, there's no picks coming back. You're just getting Brown. Like you're just getting Brown.
You're
whatever
sending
it is.
Something to the Celtics.
Probably. Yeah, like Bradley Beal.
Yeah. Here's $100 million of money. Can we get Tatum too?
Yeah, exactly. For sure. I don't think it's very plausible, but if they did lose in the second round, or let's say for some reason got blindsided by the Cavs, I don't think it's crazy that they might want to shed money while also trading for Kevin Durant. And you're right, man. It's probably going to cost the Suns' first round pick this year, which people forget that they do have. It's just another team's first round pick. And I don't know, something else to add to that pot.
Yeah.
But that's not the one. That's not the one that to me that's super interesting. What's super interesting to me is Lively back on the table? Could I get Derek Lively, PJ Washington, Klay Thompson? Because PJ Washington has kind of plateaued a little bit. Not the same PJ Washington we saw last year. Klay Thompson is literally just money. And then Derek Lively. That's a pretty good retool of a team. That's interesting, while also getting a young guy in Lively who I think could be the center of the future for the Suns. And then really quickly, just so we're clear, I think I'm on I want Khalil Ware over everyone else because of what the trade package can look like around it as well. And I don't think, because the Heat could get scared into we're not trading Jaime Jaquez, and now I don't really want Jaime Jaquez anymore because he's kind of taking a step back. I worry about the Khalil Ware situation. Well, exactly. So I have to worry about the Khalil Ware situation where maybe they are oh man, do we really want to jinx that again? And that's a worry for Suns fans. So if we're just kind of talking about the deals, man, I think the Heat is 1, Mavs 2, Knicks 3. I think that's where I would go.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I would probably put Minnesota next and then Boston if it's Holiday. I'm just to kind of do the exercise.
Yeah, Boston if it's Holiday, sure.
Maybe Jabari Smith over Holiday, I guess.
I
don't know.
Yeah.
And then Vassell at the bottom.
If we're just talking about who's better, Holiday's still better than Jabari Smith right now. But
But that could change next season, right?
100%. It would be really funny though if another team moved off of Holiday after winning an NBA title, he was the problem. So that would be very funny.
He gets his second ring and is cast aside once again. Yeah, I don't know if people necessarily paid a whole lot of attention to Khalil Ware once it wasn't the Suns pick, but he broke through and started for a Miami team that's very, particular about who plays and how and everything on their team. The per game numbers aren't anything great, but he was a positive defensively in advanced metrics and was pretty close to positive offensively as a rookie who's a big part of his game is shooting, and he didn't even shoot great. Like the floor there that he's already established at age 20 for a guy we were already excited about this time last year going into draft season is pretty nice to see. So I think he would be at the top. That's why I've kind of been cautiously optimistic that we might hear the Heat pop up in these rumors again. But I think you and I are aligned on the ratings, even if we maybe feel a little differently about some of the upside versus, established vets or, where the money could go and some of that stuff. But I don't know. I don't know if this makes me feel better or worse, but it's a lot of names that I don't hate. So I'm feeling okay.
No, it makes you feel better about it. But of course, what in reality is it's going to be is the opposing team listening to this podcast is you're going to get a ham sandwich, a Pepsi, and a bag of chips, and you're going to send over Durant because that's all you're getting for a player. Because the only argument anyone can make is, oh, he's 36 years old. Yeah, and he's still awesome. So get to step in or offer something worth our time. So the Suns will get something, just maybe not what we originally thought at the middle of the season.
All right. Another person in this conversation with some much bigger names. We're going to throw a complete zag on the conversation. Bradley Beal. Could the Suns actually get in on some of the your unwanted stuff for my unwanted stuff kinds of trades that we've seen in the NBA recently? Next. First, today's show is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? That's right. You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices with no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. With 4K streaming, you can also watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscription services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney+, Max, and more. Whether you love gaming or you just want to watch the best stuff in premium definition, head to Amazon.com/FireTV locked on to get started. That's all one word. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. That's Amazon.com/FireTV locked on. All right, Ben, let's breeze through this because it is admittedly a little absurd. Bradley Beal is persona non grata here in Phoenix. Matt Ishbia is not so carefully hinting at the potential to buy him out, saying that players who don't fit what the Suns want to be as an organization won't be here. Basically giving up any semblance of leverage that the Suns have. They have allowed it to get the cat to get out of the bag that they could frankly just give him his $110 million and say, have a nice day. That's not exactly what you would do if you would want to make a trade. You probably don't think you have the ability to make that trade. However, if we're being honest, Durant included, which is why I bring up guys like Randall and Lively, or Randall and Anunoby, I should say, and even Holiday. The modern NBA has told us, even before all these aprons got introduced, the most common trades of really expensive max and supermax players who are a little on the outs with their team is for other highly paid max and supermax players who are on the outs with their teams. It's not really common to get a Derek Lively for Kevin Durant trade, if we're just being honest. Likewise, you can look at, let's give an example of where I'm going with this, the Pelicans with Zion Williamson, for example, and say, oh, we'd like to send Zion Williamson out and reset our foundation around Herb Jones and Trey Murphy. It's not really all of what happens, and it might be more likely to say, if I'm Joe Dumars, who apparently is a dude running an NBA team again, hey, I want to get rid of Zion. I may just have to get some assets and eat some money of a player like Bradley Beal in order to just get rid of the Zion thing once and for all and just reset the deck, reshuffle the deck. So let me just throw the 3 more names at you and we can just get into the conversation, right? Because these are 4 teams that have messes on their hands to varying degrees. I mentioned Zion, Paul George in Philly, Trae Young in Atlanta, Domantas Sabonis in Sacramento. These are all names I've seen Suns fans throw out thinking, hey, could we just give them Beal and some stuff? This is a little different than dumping Beal. We'd have to see the Suns give more things to that team and turn this Beal problem into a little less of a problem, maybe even something that's actually an opportunity. Does this seem possible at all to you, or am I a madman, Ben?
No, you're not a madman. Well, you're gross, but you're not a madman, because it means you have to look at other teams. This sounds so bad because obviously no one is garbage, but this is the only way I can put it. You have to look at some other team's garbage and say, I'll trade you my garbage for your garbage. And maybe one man's trash is another man's treasure, and it just fits differently, right? And so you're talking about before the Bucks got rid of Middleton, like bringing over Middleton's bad contract or someone of that nature to help.
Right now with the Wizards with Middleton. Yeah.
Exactly. So you're looking at teams like the Pistons, right, who have sometimes a little bit of trouble scoring the basketball, or maybe even the Knicks at times, or the Bucks, like teams like that who need another scorer. And like, I refuse to believe Bradley Beal is just washed. Obviously, the injury concerns are ridiculous, but like you mentioned this one because I think I'm sure you saw it too, but I think I floated this to you through text where it was like Beal for Zion straight up. Now, how does the money work? I don't know. I'm sure you got to add something in, but that's the framework of the deal.
In that case, Zion makes less because he's younger, so he can't have a supermax yet. So some of these are different amounts of money that we're exactly talking about.
Whatever. 3-team deals that everyone kind of gets something that they want, where the framework is Beal for Zion. Like, if people don't want to take a chance on Zion and don't want to give up anything of value, maybe Dumars is like, you know what? Let's just get a guy in here, a CJ McCollum-esque player who's more focused on scoring the basketball. And let's just get Zion the hell out of here. Like,
yeah.
I don't think
from
that's
the team from the other team's standpoint. In most of these cases, the value of Beal is that his contract is shorter than the player that they're sending out. That's literally it. Like, you could sell your fan base on Brad is a proven 30-point per game scorer and all NBA player who we believe will, be a good veteran.
Misused.
It's not any of that. It's just that you're getting off of the problem. And it helps to look at it in terms of total salary, right? Because Zion, he has some weird stuff where technically his entire contract is non-guaranteed. There's weigh-ins and all these checkups and everything else, but it seems like they're not super hard to meet, and we can just assume. So 75, 117, 160 plus $1 million is total salary left for Zion. That's $50 million more than what Beal is owed. Like, that's the appeal to these teams. I think a more logical 1-for-1 trade would be like George or Sabonis.
Yeah. So that's what I
think the other two, Zion and Trae, the Suns are probably sending some stuff because those guys are still young with promise. Like, you're not just doing, we'll send you Beal, we get Zion freaking Williamson,
What do you mean Trae?
Young.
I
said him in the 4. He's not necessarily available, but they just fired their GM, and there's always rumors about his potential.
That is true. There's been rumors ever since he showed up. I just think he's more of a positive than any of these guys are who in like dead man's land are negative.
Agreed.
The one that is very intriguing that I would not do because he just got his new deal is Paul George. But man, does he look broken. The only thing for Paul George is like, at least he's 6'8", and when in his prime, he was a really good defender. But I think you're just getting, but now, injury concerns, looks broken.
PG has $210 million total. After this season, it's 160.
So you and I,
$50 million more than Beal.
Would you trade Beal for George straight up? Just so I can get this answer out of you.
No.
No. Like the only team that has it worse than us is the 76ers.
You're
Like,
digging
they have
as deep of a hole as the Beal contract put you in. The only thing Paul George doesn't have is a no trade clause, but his contract is longer and more expensive. He's digging you a deeper hole.
And I watched because I was excited for the Sixers this year. As much as I don't really love the Joel Embiid aspect, they were like miserable to watch. And yeah, they've got Maxey and they've got some picks. Like, they're not in so much of purgatory like the Suns are in some ways, but George is a lost cause, man. That, like, you are just applauding the Clippers for letting that guy walk. So, yeah.
Last thing, Sabonis then, right? So we're both nose on Philly. I think we don't really buy the Atlanta thing. And then the Pelicans with Zion, it'd be like, let's hear a little more about it, right? Like,
yeah, a lot of
actually
jump through.
Let it progress. Especially we're talking about this on a day where Dumars said I'm not under a mandate to trade Zion, and I'd like to try to get to know him and see if we can make this work. So he may not even actually be on that wavelength either. The Kings, though, Sabonis, I mean, he's already complaining about not having a point guard. That team is going nowhere fast. They are fully embracing the middle once again. And he is a little cheaper. 83, let's see, 130, 180 million. So I take that completely back because his contract just started. It's 180 million, subtract 40 from this season, so whatever. It's still a lot of money, more than Beal makes, and a player who you and I have already talked about in passing a couple of times. You know my feelings. I think that he is severely limited on defense to the point that puts a real cap on what you can be as a team. He is only 28, but I can't wrap my arms around that one, even as a bailout for Beal. And the main reason why is I would be really worried about the ability to reflip him if you ever needed to. Like, you might really just be saddled with he's got to be on your team for the next 4 seasons, no matter what kind of ceiling he puts on you. And that's not something I'm in a hurry to rush into as we're trying to see this team reset itself.
I think really the only thing that's going to happen for Beal if he does get traded is some team like the Wizards willing to take on his deal if the Suns give up a lot, whatever that looks like. I just... The only ones that make sense are ones where you're like, why would I do that? Like, in terms of contract and would the other team do it? It's like, well, why would I do that? I'm just getting rid of another problem to add another problem.
It's
maybe
John
there's
Wall
a
getting
world.
traded for Russell Westbrook, right? I mean, that's kind of like the original example of this type of thing when the early stages of the Supermax existing, and it's usually a lose-lose.
Well, maybe there's a world where a team that really needs to just get someone that can get a bucket, maybe the Rockets or something like that, who have a lot of cap space to give, and you understand that contract, it gets more and more tradable the longer it goes on. Maybe that happens because Beal is still a guy that can get a bucket offensively. Maybe the Orlando Magic are this team where, like, they don't really get a lot of star talent. Maybe that's it as well. But again, you're not getting anything back. If you trade Beal,
the thing we should always say, because people feel the need to remind us, he has a no trade clause. We know. We get it. Yeah. We're talking in hypotheticals because we don't have Bradley Beal as a guest on the podcast to ask him if he would waive his no trade clause.
Yeah, exactly. And then Sabonis, man, like, that feels too good to be true. Like, I know Sabonis is
bad. I think it feels too bad to be true. I'm not interested at all.
I know that you don't think Sabonis is like, whatever, you're 1 or 2, you can win a championship with him. But, like, he plays hard. He's obviously an undersized big. I wouldn't hate him being here, and I'd rather him be here than Beal. But, like, I don't see why the Kings would welcome those issues unless we were also giving them picks and stuff with it, and that changes.
I think you would. I think you would for Sabonis, probably at least something in addition to Beal, because Sabonis is just a better player and a more valuable player right now. Yeah. Obviously, the Kings also have Zach LaVine on their roster. Like, it's not really like a right now thing. We're kind of forecasting how the offseason could go with all of these. They're very, very, very hypothetical. But since we were talking about it with KD, I figured why not with Beal too.
Just right now, really quickly, do you think he gets traded, or do you think the Suns are able to trade Beal? Bought out. Okay. I mean, I agree. We've talked about the the minutia of what that would be.
We've
what that would
covered
look like.
every aspect
Yes.
of what Beal could look like at this point, and I think that where they get him to give them a little money back for whatever type of mid-level or maybe better, but probably not type of contract he could get from his next team, that cuts them down below the dead money line and all that, and they're good. That's my guess as to where this goes. This was just
I'd agree.
A dream scenario potentially, right?
I would say like the Pelicans one isn't impossible. That's the only one that I think I would do, but it's just a lot. It's a lot that has to happen. Like it has to be weeks on end of no team calling for Zion. Like the Suns are the last team in line. It's like, yeah, call us 30 weeks from now. We'll let you know where we're at. And even still, probably not.
There is one aspect of the Beal thing we haven't talked about, which we'll save. I'm not trying to open the conversation now, but there are a lot of people I do still see online who say, just keep him for one more season and then buy the last year out. I don't think that's what HB is
I don't
feeling,
think it's crazy
which is
either.
why I don't take it seriously. But that'll wrap us up. Hit follow, subscribe if you have not already. We got tons of news coming day by day around this crazy organization. You'll want to keep it right here to get caught up to everything every day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.